Hello everyone, I'm Reed. Welcome aboard my train of thought. And I'm sorry, we're back again with the shitty webcam quality. I tried recording on my phone, but it, for some reason, recorded blue everything. So I don't know. I don't know what the issue is, and I don't know how I'm gonna fix it. But in the meantime, hi, I'm recording on my webcam. We gotta do what we gotta do, right? Anyways, on today's video, I'm just gonna let out some thoughts about the first K-drama that I've ever watched, which I just finished yesterday, and it's called Hi Bye Mama. It's on Netflix, and I think it was released on 2020, on like April 2020 or something. Yes, and well, it was definitely a drama, no doubt about that. It was recommended to me a while ago by a friend when I asked for like movies or TV shows that would make me cry. And honestly, I did not expect it to deliver as hard as it did. I cried in almost every episode. So, yeah, I'm just gonna talk about it with you now. And before I start talking about the show, I want to like a little disclaimer slash apologize ahead of time because I don't think I'm going to be able to pronounce the names correctly. I'll try my best, I swear. But yeah, I have no doubt that I probably butcher some of the names. Yeah. Anyways, let me get into it. So, the story follows Chayuri, who at the beginning of the show is a ghost. And she died on a traffic accident like 5 to 6 years earlier. And at the time, she was pregnant, but the doctors managed to save her daughter. Sovio? Sovio. I think that's how they pronounce it on the show. um, and at first, we see Yuri following Sovio around as a ghost and just trying to like be with her daughter on like her earlier moments, but she's not able to like really interact with her because she's a ghost. And we see that Yuri's husband, widower, Chokangwa, I think that's how they say it. I'm sorry, got remarried to Oh Min Young. Min Young. I'm sorry, deeply sorry. And the new wife seems like very stoic and serious and kind of distant, but you get to see that she actually really cares about Kanwa and Soyo, and that she's actually a very kind and caring person. And well, she came into a family that wasn't really her own, and she did her best to like fix them up because Kanwa was very depressed because of Yuri dying, and she took care of Soyo. So yeah, she's like a good person. One day, completely out of nowhere, Yuri becomes human again, and she goes to talk to this shaman called Mirong, who she knew like when she was a ghost because shamans can see ghosts and they're in charge of like sending them up there or something. She goes to talk to Mirong, and Mirong tells her that she was given 49 days to take back her place, and if she does that, she can come back to life. But if she doesn't, she has to move on onto her next life. The problem is that her place is where she would have been if she hadn't died, which is as Soyo's mother and Kanwa's wife. But that place is already taken by Miyong. And since Yuri has been around, like watching how hard it was for Kanwas when she first died, and how Min Young takes care of Soyo, she doesn't want to take back her place because she doesn't want to like screw Min Young over. So Yuri decides that she doesn't want to take her place back, and instead she's going to take those 49 days to help Soyo because due to Yuri hanging out around her as a ghost since she was basically a baby, Soyo now can see ghosts, and that puts her like in danger, and it also like holds her back in her development in a way, and it limits like her opportunities in life apparently. So Yuri decides that she's going to cleanse all of the ghosts around Soyuz on those 49 days so that she stops seeing them. And at first, she tries to hide from everyone from her earlier life because she knows that she's gonna die again in 49 days and she doesn't want to put them through all of that pain again. But she's eventually found out, and obviously, drama ensues um, because, well, Yuri being back complicates things for Kanwa, and she just wants to be with Soyo again a little bit of time because she wasn't even able to hold her, and, drama. I'm not gonna say a lot more because I don't really want to give out like heavy, heavy spoilers, but it is a very interesting premise and it lends itself to the drama really, really well. And even it can actually raise some kind of hard moral, hypothetical, completely hypothetical questions. But yeah, that's what it's about. Now, these are things that I kind of disliked, but they're mostly irrelevant to the show. Like, they don't break the show apart for me. So that's why they're nitpicks, because they're just like very insignificant things that kind of bother me, in a sense. First of all, oh, there's this food scene that I hated so much because it was so close to a mukbang. And if you watched another video from my channel on what I think about YouTube communities, you'll know that I'm really uncomfortable by watching people eat. And like, I can usually handle it when they're just like casually eating in a show. Usually in American TV shows, people don't really eat. You don't really see people eat. You see people like with food, but since they're usually talking, you just see them like playing around with the food. And when you see someone like stuff their face, you usually see it like from behind, or I don't know. And those scenes are very, very actually uncomfortable for me. And there's this scene, like right after Yuri becomes a human again, that she goes into like binge eating because when she was a ghost, she wasn't able to eat a lot. She wasn't able to eat at all, and she missed food. So she orders a lot of food, and she like starts eating, and it made me really uncomfortable. All of the other eating scenes are fine. I guess it was just that one that really came too close to a mukbang for me, for my comfort. Another thing is that some of the scenes linger for way too long, like for my taste. And they also repeat a lot of scenes without like there being a point to it. Like sometimes you'll see a character is sad and they'll flash back to the scene that makes them sad, and it's like we can kind of gather that they're sad because of that. Or if you want to show like the scene, maybe just show like a shortened version of it, but no, they show it like in whole. And I don't know, maybe it kind of seemed unnecessary for me because I watched the show not back to back because I couldn't do that, but like within short periods of time. And maybe when it was coming out, it was like a weekly thing, so it worked to like remind the audience of what had happened. But I don't know, I just felt like some of the flashbacks were unnecessary. And also, sometimes they did flashbacks to like scenes that we had already seen, but that they cut off like in the middle, I guess, and they play like the part that we already saw and some new parts that we hadn't seen. And that sometimes worked for like dramatic reveals and for the suspense and all. But other times I was like, that is something that you could have revealed like the first time you shown the scene, and you just didn't need to like cut away and then cut back. And it also like conflated with the flashbacks because then sometimes when they go into a flashback, you're wondering, oh, are they going to reveal some new information? And then they don't. They just play back the flashback as it was, like the scene that already happened, just as it was. So yeah, that's something that I didn't really care for, I guess. And I don't know, maybe this is something that is like common standard for K dramas, and I'm just like complaining about a convention of the genre. But yeah, I don't know. It was weird for me. Another thing is that sometimes the characters made me really mad because like of the communication issues. Like there were some problems that could have really been solved by just communicating correctly. But that is like such a minor nitpick because most dramas hinged on like miscommunication. And if that hadn't happened, maybe like the show wouldn't be a thing. So yeah, that I can forgive, I guess. There was this plot line with an exorcist that I didn't really understand. Like, he appears out of nowhere to take all of the other ghosts, like, up there, which is kind of understandable. But then he mentions that he's there for Soyo, and Mirong says that that's because since Soyo can see ghosts, he's there to, like, take her away so that she can become like a shaman or an exorcist too, or something like that. But by the way Midong said it, I assumed that it was like a misdirect, like that, like she was hiding the real reason why he was after Soyo. But then they didn't like mention it again. They didn't resolve it, so that leads me to think that she was like telling the truth, but that it seemed like so nonsensical to me. Maybe I'm just like not in the loop of what being a shaman ensues, like, or like, why would you need to take the kid away so young? I was left so confused. And finally, I don't know if I should include this as a nitpick because it's not really a bad thing. Like, it's actually praise for the actors because they caused me so much emotional distress. Really. Like, their crying was way too raw and it felt way too real, and it made me really uncomfortable. Especially because, as I said, a lot of the scenes linger for very long. So you are forced to sit there and watch someone like wail and cry and beat their chest in desperation. And I think it was like a very intense depiction of grief. And I know I asked for it to make me cry in the first place, but I really wasn't expecting them to go that hard on it, I guess. And as I said, it's, I guess, really good work on the actor's part. But yeah, no, it really made it hard for me to watch the show because it like made me really sad and I had to take a lot of breaks because of it. And also another thing, speaking of this like very raw, intense depiction of grief, I think there was a lot of exaggeration, but again, I don't really think that I can say that that's a bad thing because it's meant to be a drama, and like it would be like complaining that horror movie characters make stupid decisions because they do, but that's a convention of the genre. So yeah, some of the reactions were a little exaggerated, but I think that was expected. Um, and yeah, I think that's like all of the nitpicky things that I have to say about the show. Well, I know I just mentioned it, but I feel like I need to mention it again in this category because really the performances from the actors were just fantastic. And well, I mean, I don't know. I can't really know because since I don't know like the language, I'm not that like real well equipped to know if they are exaggerating some parts or if they are just like that's the intonation that they need for certain words. You know what I mean? But in my opinion, from my perspective, they were good actors and they did drama really, really good. And just as they did like grief really good, they also did happiness really good. And like something that I really, really loved about the plot line in general is that they didn't go with the evil stepmother cliche trope or whatever. They actually made it a point of like building a friendship between Min Young and Yuri when Min Young doesn't really know that she's hanging with her husband's dead wife. but like they actually become friends, and you see that Min Young is really trying and she wants what's best for Soyo, and you see that Yuri doesn't really hold anything against Min Young because she's actually grateful that she's taking care of Soyo and Kanwa. So yeah, I really like that they actually made them become friends instead of pitting them against each other, because that could have been like a very easy source of conflict. Like if they just hated each other, that would have been like really easy and straightforward. But instead, they went with a more like kind of complicated um, issue with like no, they're getting actually along really well, and that puts like a little bit more pressure on Canvas and all of that. And I already said that I found the premise interesting. I liked it, and it was very well developed. Like this was a very good idea, and in my opinion, very good execution. And besides Yuri, you also see a lot of other ghosts, and you get to learn how some of them died, and they develop a lot of them really well, because they're side characters. You shouldn't expect them to be like really overly developed, but you get to see like their motivations and their regrets and things that they wish they could do, but they're ghosts and they can't. And you understand them. And yeah, even if they're just side characters, I think they're very well developed. And they were like a very good source of tears because, well, you see them very frustrated that they can't like be there for their families, but they were also really good comedic relief sometimes. Speaking of which, there's this like scene in episode 6 where these ghosts do a musical number and they sing like according to the subtitles they sing do you hear the ghost sing, and that's obviously a reference to Les Miserables with "Do you hear the people sing?" And I don't know, it was really silly and over the top, but I loved it because I'm a sucker for musical sequences and musicals in general. So yeah, and just like that one, there are a lot of silly sequences. There's this one where Omin Young, Cha Yuri, and Yuri's best friend Hyun Young get like geared up and they team up to beat up some really gossipy and mean moms from like Soyo's kindergarten. And it was like really fun. At first, I was a little annoyed. I was like, why are we going through this long ass sequence? But then I was like really entertained and I found it really fun. A point in favor for The Exorcist, even if his plotline went absolutely nowhere, in my opinion, is that he was actually really scary. He was a very scary presence. I was very disturbed by his evil smile. Like props to the actor for depicting such a like nonsensically evil looking character. Soyo was really adorable, even though she gave me a lot of anxiety. Like I'm not a mother, but my motherly instincts were kicking in whenever she ran up to strangers like it was nothing. Like, oh my god, she's just way too trusting. And like, I can't. But she's adorable. She's really cute. She has a really cute smile. And yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to think of like specific things that I liked because sometimes it's easier to look at the negative side of things. But overall, I think it was a good show and it handled like a very interesting premise really well. And yeah, I have to recognize it for actually overachieving at its main purpose when I was watching it, which was making me cry. I know it probably doesn't come through because I don't have as many positive things to say as Nitpicks, but I actually really liked the show. I usually enjoy dramas a lot, so I had fun with like the exaggerated reactions and all of that. It did its job, which was making me cry, and the premise was very interesting. However, it is a very hard premise, I think. It's a very distressing premise, and it was very hard for me to watch it, even if like I don't have like a specific trigger related to the loss of a loved one, it was still very hard and distressing for me. So I wouldn't really recommend it if you're struggling with a recent loss or if you're not like in a particularly good mental place, because I wasn't when I started watching it, and it just intensified the bad mental episode. So yeah, I would recommend it just depending on your like actual mental state going into it. And there were also like particular parts of the show that I couldn't really understand because, well, I'm guessing they're very specific to like Korean culture or beliefs. For example, they mentioned that kids have like very weak energy, so ghosts shouldn't be around them. And that's like a very easily understood thing. But then there's the fact that Yuri is like very opposed to the idea of Soyo becoming a shaman due to her seeing ghosts. And like I couldn't understand what was like the negative connotation of being a shaman. So yeah, that's not something bad. Like that was another deterrent from for me to watch the show. If anything, it just made me a little bit more curious, and now I want to know a little more about like Korean beliefs in general. There was this particular like point where Yuri's mother had like an algae soup, I think, and I didn't really understand it, and I tried looking it up and I couldn't see anything like that helped me understand why her mother was like so not obsessed, but like yeah, no, there was this thing with the algae soup that I didn't really understand. And if anyone watching knows what the algae soup was about, I think they kind of explained it at the end, but I still wish like that thing shows up in like episode, I don't know, 6, I don't remember, 6 or 7, and they don't explain it until like episode 16. As for if I would watch any other K dramas, I don't know, really. Before watching this one, I had already tried watching Love Alarm, but I didn't make it past the first episode. And not because the show wasn't good or the premise wasn't good, like, I was actually interested by the concept of the show. It was just that I personally don't like watching dubbed shows. I like watching them in like their original language. But when I don't speak that original language, that means that I'm forced to actually read the subtitles. Even when I watch something in English and I already speak it, I put subtitles on because I like having them. But when I speak the language, I can sometimes get distracted on my phone and I'm still listening to the show and I still know what is going on. But when I don't speak the language, I'm forced to like be glued to the screen all the time because I don't want to like miss anything that the characters are saying. And I had the same issue with Dark, and this is not an issue of the show. This is just my short ass attention span, and the fact that sometimes I'll have to pause the show to check my phone, and like that's annoying. So yeah, also it had 16 episodes, and all episodes were longer than an hour. So it's not exactly bingeable. It's not like one of those shows that has like 7 episodes, all like 30 to 40 minutes, so you can watch it all like in a weekend or less. No, no. Like this took me a very long time. So if all other K dramas are as long as this one, maybe I'd watch another one. I'll just have to be like in a very specific mood to actually focus on the show and not get distracted by my phone. I wouldn't be able to like have it as background noise, and I would also have to have a lot of free time. But yeah, I'm not close to the idea of watching any other K dramas. I like this one. So yeah, those were my thoughts about my very first K drama, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're like me before I watched this show and you haven't watched any K-drama, maybe try this one. I don't know if it's like a good representation of the genre, but I liked it and I hadn't watched any other K-dramas. I had never been even interested in them except for Love Alarm, but yeah, so maybe try it. Or if you are actually a fan of K-dramas and you have like a long repertoire of dramas that you like, maybe recommend some of them down below. As I said, I'm not completely closed off to watching another one. Maybe the next time that I'm in the mood to actually pay attention, I'll have some recommendations from you. Or just, leave anything in the comments that you want. You can even roast me if you wish to. I don't care. So, anyways, maybe like this video if you want to, and also consider subscribing if you're not subscribed already. I make videos about like anything that I have thoughts on. They're quite random, but I don't know, maybe they can be good background noise if you're into having something play while you do other stuff. And that would be all. Thank you for riding this train of thought with me. We've reached the last station, so we can all head down now. All right, bye!